Today, we're going to have an open, honest, transparent conversation about if you can truly retire off of DeFi passive income. So we're going to go ahead and dive right into this. Now, the first thing that I just want to preface is I do not think that DeFi provides passive income. Sure, it's passive to an extent, but it's not as passive as real estate. It's not as passive as other industries either. It's not as passive as just simply putting your money into a staking pool or a lending pool and letting it do its thing, which is why we use the term DeFi income, because that's what we're producing. And this is somewhat of a side hustle because you are going to have to spend 3 to 5 hours per week when it comes to investing into DeFi just to get these returns. And I'm currently deployed in Hype to UBTC, Ethereum to Render, Ethereum to Lido, and Ethereum to Tau. I have about $62,500 in my liquidity pools, and I'm going to be ramping up another $20,000 over the course of the next couple weeks. My overall portfolio, it's low risk. It's doing a 60% APR. I don't have to touch these pools every day. You can see this one's been since July 28th, this one since July 29th, this one August 1st, same with this one, right? These pools I am typically going to be in for roughly 2 to 3 weeks before I end up rebalancing them. So yes, while it is more passive than other people's positions that are rebalancing more often, it is still not entirely passive. There's research, there's validation, and there is a lot that goes into managing these positions. And as I said, our clients are spending roughly 3 to 5 hours per week managing. But the question is, can we retire off of this? Currently, I am doing about $3,200 per month, and that is off $62,000. This is a realistic return. This is the average of what you're going to be doing in the markets. There are going to be some times where you're doing 40, 50%, other times where you're doing 80 to 100% when the market is heating up. Okay, but you are going to average to 60 to 70% on your DeFi portfolio in specific. Not to mention, we do not recommend you deploy all your capital into DeFi, right? So this is $62,000. I have $180,000 in this industry, including the 62. So not even all of my capital is deployed here. It's diversified. And the reason why is because that is the smart play. There are going to be times when the market goes up, right? Hype diverges from BTC, or Render diverges from ETH, Lido diverges from ETH, Tau diverges from ETH, right? And we are going to have divergence loss. We are going to get beat by holding in the market, right? And ultimately that means that yes, we earned income, but we have less money at the end of the day. Theoretically, so if we're just putting that money in our bank account, we are selling our assets basically. And that's the other thing, right? A lot of people like to just take all their income out and not pay down any divergence loss. Well, you can see I have 70% retention of my earnings here, which means I have $611 in earnings, but 30% of those are essentially the break even with divergence loss and should be going to pay down divergence loss. Therefore, meaning if I'm just taking all of my earnings out, putting it in my bank account, well then that's essentially depleting my overall capital stack and my asset stack in DeFi over time. So if we multiply our monthly earnings by 70%, we're actually doing about $2,200. The other $900 or so needs to go down to pay that divergence loss basically. So my asset stack is not depleting. So you're going to need to have significantly more capital to be able to retire off of DeFi passive income. And you're going to need to have significant amount of savings because there are going to be times where you are going to have nothing in liquidity pools because you are implementing contingency strategies because the market is just way too volatile. And if you can't afford to have nothing in liquidity pools because you have to pay your bills, you're going to end up making harsh and rash decisions that do not benefit your financial future in the long term. Again, all of us want to be able to just retire, quit our job, do all that stuff. We've seen people that have done that, and we've seen the unfortunate circumstance of them quitting their job for DeFi, having to go back and work a completely different job in a new field, right? And start off with a lower salary because they thought they could quit their job from DeFi. The only way you're going to be able to quit your job with DeFi is if you have maybe $250,000 in liquidity pools and you have more in crypto overall. You understand the market cycles. You have a lot of savings built up. You can afford to continuously compound, pay down your divergence loss while taking some out. And then of course, when bear markets come, you know how to run market neutral strategies. So again, you don't have to go back to work because now all of a sudden you're not producing income and your assets are depleting. And that's my other point, the $62,000. Sometimes this might be worth 70 grand. Other times this might be worth 50 grand. And if we're at 50 grand, still earning 61% APR, we are earning less money, significantly less money basically. And we're pulling out less dollars because we have less principal capital. But I don't just want to be the bearer of bad news here, right? I do want to provide you guys with a path to potentially retire in the long-term future because that is what DeFi can allow you to do. DeFi is not a job. It is not a business. It is an investment vehicle that you can use to build your wealth and compound your wealth over time. I am the type of person that is going to tell you that you should have at least $10,000 in DeFi in order to make this worth the time that you're going to input. Otherwise, you should be doing a side hustle, you should be running a business, you should be injecting more time into your current business, or you should be working more at your job and doing some other type of income generating activity to get you financially ahead. And in that way, you can afford to deploy more here because your time is going to essentially produce you more income, as opposed to maybe you earning 50, 60, even 100, 150, $200 an hour at your job, but then earning $20 an hour in DeFi, right? Wouldn't it make more sense to just do one of those other higher income generating activities? So we're going to discuss this in a couple different phases. And I want to go ahead and provide you guys with a pathway that you can implement. So that way, eventually you can retire off of DeFi by getting financially ahead. Now, here's the thing. This first phase is going to be the bull market, what we're currently in. Now, unfortunately, we're already pretty much all the way through this bull market. The second phase is going to be the bear market. And then this third phase is going to be the bull market once again. Right? And our goal is to be able to retire right over here. Not right here, not right here, right over here. Now, here's the thing. As I mentioned, with this bull market, we're about right here in the market, right? So we still have some time to go. We still have some appreciation. And if we were to put that into numbers, I think we have 30 to 50% ROI left to come in this bull market, basically. That ROI means overall return on investment. If you have 100 grand, seeing that go to 130 to $150,000. Now, that is specifically if you're targeting blue chip assets. If you're targeting altcoins, I think that number is going to be higher, more towards 60 to 90% ROI. Again, these are safe and conservative numbers. We could easily see more than that, but our goal should be to take our current capital and essentially see as much appreciation on it as possible while continuously earning yield. So that means instead of diving into crypto to stable pools, selling your assets as the market goes up, right? Maybe right now you have 150K, and this is just my example, right? And you can apply this to your own numbers and use this exercise. But our goal would be, say, 150K to turn that into 285K basically, right? So that way, entering into the bear market, we have 285K. Now we want to flip that into stable coins as soon as that bear market hits. We aren't trying to sell the exact top. This is the biggest advice I can give to you guys. Stop trying to sell the perfect price. Sell near the perfect price and commit. Don't go back. Once you sell, don't be injecting more capital back into the market. Just not a good idea. So again, sell near the top, or try to at least, into stablecoins, and then dive into bear market strategies, which will use stablecoins. We'll use liquidity positions that we can hedge. We also call those delta hedged LPs. And during this whole time, we want to focus on earning not 60, 80% APR, but something like 40 to 50% APR. And assuming that bear market is 2 years like it usually is, let's just say we do earn 50% APR. It's $142,000 per year times 2. That is $285,000 that we are going to produce during this period. Now, here's the thing. When we equate that monthly, that is roughly $12,000 per month, at least on my specific portfolio or my specific estimation. This is the money that you are going to take out of the market and you are going to put in your bank account, preferably a savings account. And the reason why is because you want to build up capital so that way later on you can afford to quit your job, retire, and live off of the savings as well as the income that you are generating. Again, you don't want to quit your job quite yet. Use your job to live just like you normally live and use that $12K a month to maybe slightly adjust your lifestyle, but not proportional to the additional amount of money that you are generating. In other words, if you're already generating $12K a month from your job, don't double your expenses, but rather maybe increase your expenses by 10, 20%, because we all want to enjoy a little bit of freedom, maybe go on that extra vacation per year, maybe do this, maybe do that, right? But for the most part, the majority of this should be going into your bank account in your savings. So that way you can get financially ahead. So when the next bull market comes, you are ready to quit your job. On top of that, this entire 285K, we want to leave in. The reason why is because that's what's producing us 12K per month. And then going into the next bull market, again, not trying to time the exact bottom, just getting comfortable with the price that you enter at, you will enter with 285K. Now, realistically, while we are averaging 60 to 70% APR right now in the markets, we're most likely going to be averaging roughly 50 to 60% over here because, of course, there are diminishing returns as the market starts to increase in overall market cap. But again, entering in with 285K, we're now producing a 60% APR. That right there is $171,000 per year, which is roughly $14,000 per month. And that does not factor in any sort of appreciation. And again, we have to factor in that our 285K is going to grow, right? So 60% APR on now 500K, a million, that is going to be perfectly reasonable. Let's assume that we have a 4x return this market. Once again, very reasonable if allocated to Bitcoin, Ethereum, but also importantly, the altcoins that have a lot of potential. So again, 285K times 4, that's going to essentially put us at 1.14 million by the absolute end of the market. We're also going to create a middle ground of $570,000 in the middle of the market, right? So ultimately, let's just assume that we jump from 285 to 570. Again, realistically, we are going to be able to pull out more income because it's going to go to 290, then 295, and we're going to be producing more income. But in this instance, we're not going to worry about all the little ladders and steps in between 285 to 570, which is actually in this model going to be a lot more conservative. We are generating 14K a month at the start, and then our 570K is going to be generating 28K per month. And then our 1.14 million is going to be generating 57K per month. Again, don't think these are the numbers that you're going to pull out into your bank account. These are the numbers that you're going to use to consistently compound your portfolio. Again, this 4x return assumes the income, right? You're getting a 4x return because you are generating income and re-injecting that income, but also because of the asset appreciation that is done in bull markets, right? So now going into the next bear market, which is right over here, you're coming in with $1.14 million. In this instance, we started with 150 grand, now pulling out $1.14 million after a couple of years. Remember, this is a 2-year process. This is a 2-year process as well. So it's now been probably about 4.5 years or so. And we have 150K that went to 1.14 million by playing the long game. Now this time in the actual bear market itself, now that we kind of understand what we're doing, right? We found our sea legs. We're essentially a professional at investing this stuff at this point. We are generating now probably like a 30 to 40% APR, again, diminishing returns on this $1.14 million. And that number right there is $456,000, which when we equate that to a monthly return, that's $38,000 per month that we are now able to pull out and put in our bank account. Are we going to live paycheck to paycheck off the $38,000 per month? Absolutely not. But are we going to have a good amount of freedom? Absolutely so. And of course, are we going to have the opportunity to quit our job? Absolutely so. So again, if you essentially live by a budget, you have reasonable means, that $38,000 per month will allow you to get financially ahead. And if there are any instances where your overall portfolio value goes down or you don't produce as much income 1 month, that is going to allow you to still have buffer room so you don't have to immediately go back to your job. So you have time to figure things out. And funny enough, this is actually in the bear market where we are quitting our job, the complete opposite of what most people do, where they quit in the bull market. And the only reason why this works is because we are playing the market. And of course, we are compounding, building up our overall portfolio value. And then going into the next bull market, again, we will produce higher returns. And then that's where we'll start to put money in our bank account while still compounding a portion of the earnings. So again, will DeFi put you on a path to quit your job? Absolutely so. But that is a path, and that is a long path. That is not tomorrow. That is not next week. That is not the week after that, right? It is a long-term path that can help you get financially ahead. So maybe you can retire in your 30s, your 40s, as opposed to your 50s, your 60s. And as always, I would highly recommend that you diversify. So maybe instead of just putting money in savings accounts, you are opening up other positions in other industries. Maybe you have some real estate investments. Maybe you also have some stock market investments. Maybe you have some fixed income strategies, right? Do just kind of safe, low risk investments that you can use to compound your wealth and build your wealth. And again, always live below your means. It's the number one thing. A lot of people get a hold of money and they're like, oh, I'm making 38K a month. This is all investment income. It's going to be consistent. Let me go spend 30K a month. Boom, got 8K a month to put away. And then all of a sudden they make 20K the next month. They're like, oh shoot, right? Now I'm digging into my savings. And then 20K the month after that, it's like, and then they have to completely adjust their lifestyle. It's very hard to go from a lifestyle where you live well above your means to living back below your means. So anyways, just remember you would want to have more than this 150K because this is your specific liquidity pool section of your portfolio. You're going to have lending strategies. You're going to have hodl strategies. You're going to have more advanced strategies, stuff like that. So realistically, in this example, you should have 250K in your overall portfolio if you plan on putting 150K in liquidity pools, something like that. 250K in the overall portfolio, 150 in liquidity pools. And with that being said, if you guys want a proven pathway to success, something that's not going to help you quit your job tomorrow, but rather in the long-term future, something a lot more realistic, if we're being completely honest, I'm going to leave a video on screen that kind of provides a pathway for that. With that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.